everyone. Really great to be with you guys. I was excited already just listening to Lebo's introduction. I couldn't make it to every session yesterday, but there is already a lot to chew on. I might touch on one or two things you've already talked about yesterday, but I'm really keen to just get into us having a chat about this creative economy, the creative industries, 4IR, and what could potentially be one of the biggest opportunities our sector has really had in a very long time. And I really believe Africa is poised just in an incredible way to maximize this if we're strategic about it. So I'm not going to introduce any much more of myself than you've already heard. I'm basically just a creative myself, and through my own hustle and having to make things work, make things sustainable, have built different entities to try and create access for this to myself and other entrepreneurs. The work on the commission was not, the commission wasn't a government entity. The commission was a group of people that were pulled in from different sectors of society to speak into what our country's strategy should be. And I think in some ways by accident, I landed up there because I'm a big mouth about the importance of the creative industries. And it spoke to me to the need for so many more of us to be more vocal about articulating who we are, what we bring, what the potential is. And in saying that, we've positioned what we can position, but I believe the conversation is ongoing. None of us are necessarily the expert in all of this. And we are in a space, as Lebo has said, where so many things are in flux, where we've not done this before. New opportunities await us. COVID has accelerated many things that were coming our way, and they've landed a lot sooner than we anticipated. Anyway, all of that, let's get into our chat today. I chose this quote because it reflects for me this interesting nexus or meeting point we are at right now, where what were once in many ways marginalized industries, the creative industries, are now edging towards this potential mainstream participation in the economy and have a really critical relevance in many areas in a 4IR environment. In most of the literature on the fourth industrial revolution globally, the creative economy is regarded as a nexus or intersection of many of the dynamics of 4IR. And you guys started to unpack some of that yesterday. So if someone hasn't wished you a happy 2021 yet, because we got a bit messed up with our years with COVID, let me wish you a happy 2021. And you may not be aware, but it has been declared as the International Year of the Creative Economy for Sustainable Development by the UN. And the African Union has also declared its theme for 2021 as Arts, Culture and Heritage, Levers for Building the Africa We Want. This is awesome. This was done independently of each other, and with this convergence of focus on the creative industries through the 4IR report, through these large sort of recognition, areas of recognition of the creative economy, we must maximize and leverage of this time now to really position ourselves for what we need from government, from policy, from the business side of the creative economy. And I cannot proceed without just highlighting that just in this week, we've had 2 Grammy Awards go to Africa, and the Grammys were hosted by none other than our own cultural export, Trevor Noah. African excellence is recognized, and there is a growing market for what we are doing. Afrobeat as a genre is excelling globally. I'm not convinced we are strategic enough about leveraging some of the access that we have right now, but we'll get into that. And just in other art news this week, I don't know if any of you know, but there was a record set at an auction at Christie's last week for a non-fungible token piece of art, R1 billion this was sold at. So this is an arts category that's been around for a long time, but suddenly very quickly is being mainstream because of the growth of cryptocurrencies and the acceptance of these mediums now as legitimate. So that is just something that we need to look at. Cape Town, there's a gallery called the World Art Gallery in Cape Town that is doing South Africa's first NFT auction of an artwork next week. They're not expecting R1 billion, But it's going to be very interesting. We're already participating in these types of processes that are happening in the creative economy. So I was asked to very specifically say what the creative economy is, and I always sort of roll my eyes a bit with that too. Firstly, I'm not an academic, so terminology, for me, I'm more practical, and I need to know what works on the ground. And the truth is, the creative economy doesn't have a single definition. It really is evolving. And what it is has been articulated as by the UN bodies who work in the creative economy, is that it just builds on this interplay between human creativity and ideas and intellectual property, knowledge and technology. Again, this intersection or nexus. So it is essentially these knowledge-based economic activities on which the creative industries are based. And the most simple one comes from John Hawkins, and he's actually often been credited as the father of the term, the guy who coined the term creative economy. And it's simply a system for the production, exchange, and use of creative products. In 4IR, that's going a little bit further to where it becomes about more than just creative products. It is about IP and ideas. And then we've got upstream and downstream industries and creative assets which support the creative industries. So the creative industries, you know, the third industrial revolution economy really looks at the economy in silos. So you've got manufacturing and energy and agriculture, creative industries. And the reality is that it doesn't work like that. And with 4IR, more and more, the lines between silos are being blurred. And we've got this convergence and integration. The creative sector cuts across all the sectors of our economy. There is not a sector in our economy that does not make use of creative products, creative goods and services. If we're going to define creative industries, most countries go with a UNESCO definition, and it really just speaks to the fact that it is industries that combine creation, production, and commercialization of things, products which are intangible and cultural in nature, and they're typically protected by copyright, and they can take the form of goods or services. And then there's usually a list of what that includes, and that also is ever expanding. Some countries include architecture in that. South Africa doesn't officially or include or exclude architecture. Typically it's not there, but cuisine has even been floated as something that should be put on the list. But broadly speaking, those are the main areas that you see on your screen there. And there's obviously categories under each of these subcategories that you could add that I might not have included. So just for understanding, this is sort of the broad terminology people use. What's more interesting is there are concepts lately where people are looking at the creative ecosystem, the creative ecology. So this is really looking at a broader picture where a population has sufficient resources and flows to be able to interact purposefully, to use ideas to produce new ideas. And it's taking this idea of creativity outside of just the creative industries and arts based to say that we're entering the creative age, because the key factor propelling the economy forward is creativity in a 4IR era. And so we are at the convergence of where this is happening. And in some ways, we've been the custodians of creativity for a long time. And now creativity is becoming mainstream. And what does that mean for us? Briefly, quickly to look at what the economy, the global creative economy looks like. What's fascinating about it is that this is like a 10-year study that's been done, and it has grown consistently, even after the economic crash in 2008 and 9. And the highest levels of growth have been in developing countries. And it is thriving, this economy, at this intersection of culture and technology, business skills that have come on board. In 2015, animation was the big starter. Now, added to that list, you must have virtual reality, gaming, and esport. These are the huge, huge, huge growth areas. But this is not just measured what we would consider digital spaces in the creative economy. The entirety of the creative economy has grown. So live performance and craft and visual art. And this has been consistent in developing countries. In most developing countries, we're also seeing the trade deficit decrease, which means we're slowly starting to export more than we import. And hopefully that flips at some stage. Obviously, as the digital economy is growing, creative services is going to be one of the biggest future growth areas. There is not anything that happens online that has not gone through the hands of a creative. Coders are at the back end. Data scientists are at the back end. A creative is at the front end of producing what goes online. And essentially, creative content gives life to the digital world. Digital creative content is the new gold, is the line that is being used over and over and over. And you've got all these convergence and connections happening in this online media ecosystem that require, it's just a beast in terms of the demand for content on an ongoing basis. So content and access to it is what forms the bedrock of this creative economy. It's very interesting that in South Africa, they say our mobile penetration will sort of peak in 2022. And then the way that cell phone companies are going to be able to make money is by the demand for quality content, because they've got to keep the revenue going. This is the big challenge. We don't know as creatives yet how to monetize this properly and how to get equitable access to this opportunity. I think you might have covered, it sounds like this in some of the sessions yesterday, where it is the creators who need to be the beneficiaries and not the publisher or the platform, the aggregators of the content. And this is something we are going to have to lobby and fight for. And we're going to have a good hard look at business models and ownership and where we stand in terms of that. A quick snapshot. This is just before lockdown, this was measured. So this is just South Africa's entertainment and media spend. And the projected compound annual growth rate over a 5-year period to 2022. So you can look at all the categories there. Virtual reality and augmented reality is ridiculous, as is esports. What's key to note is that all of this growth is at far higher rates than the national economic growth rate is. These are high growth areas. What's interesting is that with COVID and the shutdown, most of this was not affected. Cinema was affected because it required physical interaction. And we saw business rescue processes for some of our entities there. But all these other categories continue to grow, and in fact grew in leaps and bounds because there was an absolute, just over the top demand for content during the lockdown. Generally speaking, I mean, you can look at this report yourself if you get a chance. You can look at just about, they break down all the countries in Africa that are participating in the creative economy, and you'll see that it looks fantastic for all of Africa. The combined annual growth rate for the 5-6 African countries that are reviewed here is 11.9%. It far exceeds the national growth rate. And I'm always baffled as to why the creative economy, the creative industries are not prioritized at a national government level when we are saying these are the priority areas of our economy. We've pushed very hard to do that via the 4IR report. And there is a push to have a master plan at national government level at the DTI, Department of Trade and Industry, for the creative industries, because we've been seen as the song and dance people for too long, sort of the nice to have, but there's not a recognition of what we contribute to human development and what we contribute to economic development in the country. So just this alone, and this is a small part of our industry, it's not even the entirety, shows you the levels of growth that are happening right now. Just quickly, some trends in South Africa. I mean, these are pretty obvious. If you would know a lot of this, that the video streaming market has taken over, even with our broadband limitations. Internet video is far beyond what physical home video is. Video on demand platforms have launched. Viacom and Fox quietly moved offices into South Africa a couple of years ago. Everyone gets all excited. I get a bit worried because we just accept, oh, yay, they're going to give us local content quotas. Is that good enough? Should we just be selling our content to platforms that are owned by foreign entities? Are we thinking about how we are going to own and aggregate our own content in Africa, in South Africa? South Africa has BEE laws where it can be required of these guys coming into the country to do BEE equity deals, where they may not give shares in the company to local people, but they invest an equivalent portion of money into infrastructure or production facilities we need in townships or whatever the case may be. But we have to contest this space in terms of what we're going to give and what we're going to take here. Otherwise, we're going to just be grateful for the little 30% quota of content that is thrown our way. There's a market, huge market for African stories, African music, African art. You'll see that video gaming and social gaming, fastest segment that's growing in this country. And I've mentioned the smartphone saturation point before, and what's going to keep cell phone companies going is the digital content offerings. Esports took off like a rocket in 2017. It's pretty small at the moment in terms of who is involved, but it's here to stay and it's going to grow dramatically. Virtual reality was the big breakout star in the last few years. The tech here is becoming more mobile, more like wearable tech, something that is just part of your everyday life. And this has already started to take root in the music industry globally, where you can have a virtual live experience. So the concert is happening, you're using the VR device to be virtually there. And artists are growing their audience access because they can fill up the stadium, but they can also have another 10,000 people online who are interacting virtually. Travis Scott last year did a concert in Fortnite. So Fortnite is the game, and Sony actually bought a huge part of the company that produces Fortnite. Artists are having virtual concerts within these gaming apps now. So there's crazy stuff happening, and no reason that we can't be participating in these spaces. Podcasting, huge and exploded in our COVID year beyond belief. So these are just some of the trends we're seeing. One of the latest, I'm keen to see what's coming out of COVID because not a lot of reporting on that has been done yet. But MIDM, which is the international music body, has just brought out a report a couple of weeks ago. And what they're saying is that, they track all the stats around who used what online and how it went. But consumer behavior has shifted to embrace virtual live experiences. The report maintains, though, that even after live performance is possible, that this integration of these mediums is going to stay. So it has been there before, but it's sort of been on the side. And it has not been mainstream. It is now going to be quite normal. But they are also saying that they see there is a real hunger for the live experience, live performance again. This is a good thing for artists because this virtual medium that you can integrate with your live performance now allows you to expand your audience. You can now connect with audiences, sell your merchandise, generate revenues way beyond the geographical location of your live performance. Unfortunately, we were caught unawares by this in South Africa. Our industry was not ready digitally. We did not have the skill, maybe the access for a lot of artists, just the basic equipment and the what we would need to just get ourselves into these spaces. And I think you're going to hear from Monica Newton today. They had to pivot a festival in 2 months. They did an awesome job, learned a lot of lessons. But there are quite a few of us having conversations around this together now, saying, how do we fast track this? How do we get artists into the digital space without sacrificing the live performance space? And what are the new models that we have to look at? Because there are new models we've got to find. What's interesting, the music industry is always referred to as the canary in the coal mine for the sector. So in other words, it's going to give us a bit of an early indication of the way the whole sector is moving. We've seen this already. The music industry's been online with Spotify and streaming, and all these things have been happening for years already. So the rest of the subsectors are going to go in this direction. And we can look at some of these models and see, what we have learned. So the creative industries are a site for innovation and growth, but it's only if we develop it appropriately, if we harness it properly. So 4IR, and I mean, I think you guys have gone through already what 4IR is. It is really providing us an opportunity in Africa to position the creative economy, firstly as a knowledge and skills engine, nurturing and supporting the human capacity needs of the country. I'm going to explain that a little bit now. We've got a huge opportunity here. Also a driver of innovation and adaptation. We have essentially, as Lebo said earlier, been working in this gig economy space for decades. You know, despite the lack of support, many enterprises and institutions in the creative economy have adopted these flexible work models, have embraced technology, they've created and reinvented works for decades. So our core outputs as well of the sector, our intellectual property, our experiences, some of the things which other industries are only now getting to as outputs. So we are positioned as a driver of innovation and adaptation, and then also as a source of new value creation. The emerging economies, and we refer to this in the 4IR report, in the 4IR era are going to be the creative economy, the green economy, or the circular economy, and the social economy. And there's an intersection with all these that the creative economy has, where we really can be seen as a value creator in terms of rights and experiences and products. And, you know, as creative occupations grow in number and in stature and in remuneration, this positions the creative economy at the center of a 4IR economy. So I'm not going to rehash all the industrial revolutions, but what is very, very important, this is our definition we came up with for South Africa, that the fourth industrial revolution is an era where people are using smart, connected, and converged cyber, physical, and biological systems and smart business models to define and reshape the social, economic, and political spheres. Now, nobody shapes society better than an artist. Nobody shapes society better than a creative. And technology, people get it wrong. They say 4IR is about technology. 4IR is not about technology. 4IR is about humanity. It is about people. It is people who are now positioned to have technology that can enable so much more than we've ever been able to do before. Technology is an enabler of human endeavor. And this era allows us to do this in a way that we have not yet been able to do. Klaus Schwab, who coined the 4IR term from the World Economic Forum, you know, he's recognized this, that talent more than capital is going to be the critical factor of production in this era. It really is an acknowledgement that it is human creativity that is the advantage in the age of automation, in the age where so much of the routine, mundane work is going to be done by machines. So much so that as the World Economic Forum has looked at what are the critical work skills that are needed, the top three are critical thinking, complex problem solving, and creativity. And many of you as creatives will know that the first two are a derivative of number three. So creative skills and creativity has to be mainstreamed across the entirety of the economy. So you can kind of look at it like the first industrial revolution sort of turned humans into machines. We became part of the assembly line. Tasks were mundane, routine, broadly across the economy. 4IR provides us with this incredible opportunity to become human again. And humans at their core, in their essence, we are creative, we are resilient, we are adaptive, we are brilliant. And I think Africa does this better than most because of the resilience we have had to demonstrate, given the social challenges that we have in this country, given the difficulties that we've had even within the creative sector and how tough it is to work in this environment. There is a reservoir of creativity, resilience, adaptiveness, brilliance that is just off the charts. So it really is our time. What's important to understand also is that the fourth industrial revolution changes how we need to learn. So it is no longer about getting a degree and getting a job. I mean, already we know that it's not working. It hasn't worked for a while. You have to have the skill to do a particular thing, you have to have competency skills. It used to be called soft skills, and we've steered away from that term in the report. We're saying competency skills, and this is problem solving, creativity, critical thinking, empathy. There's a long list, the top 3 I gave you on the previous page. And then entrepreneurial ability. Now, the creative industries work like this already. You don't need a degree to work in the creative industries, but you do need to know how to do the job. You do need the skills. And you need to then work in industry and be mentored. And then you need to upskill. And then you have this constant cycle of lifelong learning. So why I'm highlighting this is that it is actually culture and creativity that are one of the major currencies of the fourth industrial revolution, as Professor Richard Haynes puts it. They're the 2 labor sectors that the research is showing will be the least affected is IT and the creative industries by this industrial revolution. Machines cannot match humans in tasks that need social and creative skills. And then, of course, the top 5 of the 10 most in-demand job skills are all creative skills. So one more thing I want to highlight about a 4IR system is that the economy changes. So in the first industrial revolution, you had the centralized network, the main farm or the main factory, and everybody related to that hub. In 3IR, you had a decentralized networks, but still of these powerful centralized hubs that were just dispersed. The 4IR economy is starting to look more and more like this, where it is a distributed network. So all connections have equal power, your market size grows, and it's a multi-product personalized society. Now, the creative industries has worked like this for a long time. I fight with our small business development guys often because I say they want to measure our success in entrepreneurship by job creation. And I'm not convinced the creative ever sets out to try and develop, to try and create as many jobs as they can and to have that payroll. What we do in our industry is we create this complex network of freelancers and micro businesses and small and micro and medium enterprises that have a consistent flow of work and complex relationships and networks and collaborations. And this is very much what the 4IR economy is going to look like and what we are moving towards. We already work like this in many ways. And just by virtue of illustration, these are value chains in the creative industry. So if you took the top one, one creative field, right across the things we have to fight for, because other industries are starting to move this way in a 4IR economy. We've been doing this without really articulating it because it's just how our sector works. And there's a lot of things here that we can contribute to the mainstream economy. If you are going to make our creative, it looks like that. Have a thriving economy or economic sector that is not underpinned by a very, very strong skills development pipeline. And then, of course, what's been added here is the platform economy. So this dissemination and exhibitors and whatever the outlet is in the live space, that is now collapsing into being the platform economy. And they can coexist, but more and more it is coming to this top part here. The impact is going to be positive and negative on the creative industries. It's bringing new mediums. It's increasing our reach. With security, with copyright, and eventually rights bodies are going to cease to exist. We won't need the SAMROs and the like, because blockchain provides an instant, and you can't violate it. It provides that technology that we need to ensure tracing of rights. I want to get to this though, because the biggest challenge we're going to face with all the opportunities we have as a sector is, are we going to do this inclusively? The new jobs that are being created do require higher levels of specialization and of skills. Creative skills are the most expensive skills you can possibly get. To do a 1-year certificate in photography you have to go to a private college. It's not being offered at the TVETs, right? And it's going to cost you more or equal to 2 to 3 years at university just to do one program in photography or film and video production or whatever the case may be. It's very, very expensive skills. But the skills are critical. And so how are we normalizing access? We have to normalize access to the skills in this industry if we are going to produce the pipeline that is going to be able to meet the demand that there is for content development, for digital content and other. We've got to put accessible spaces into our townships, rural areas that are digitally enabled. We've also got to think about skills in a way that it is not in silos. So the IT guys who are doing coding and data science on this side and the digital creatives on this side. We've got to look at what are the digital skills that we need? What are the IT skills we need? How are we going to combine this? And then accessibility in terms of connectivity. There are processes in place with Spectrum and governments doing various things, and the 4IR report prioritized this. We saw some movement in COVID, but the reality is we still have the most expensive data in the world. And across Africa, the reach is not what it could be in many countries. So this is something we've got to keep pushing for. This excludes people. So 4IR across the board has got the potential to exacerbate inequalities in all sectors, but particularly in the creative sector. And as Lebo said, right now as we speak, there are protests by artists, the National Arts Council, and across the country, in fact, for just how dismally the lockdown situation was handled. And what's become very, very obvious is despite the shortcomings of our structures and government institutions and the like, we also have not had a forward-thinking plan. We were not ready for digital. We just were not. And if you're not in that space, you are going to lose out on some of the economy of what is coming. So the 4IR report does the following. We basically incorporate the creative economy in South Africa's strategy as a country, as a driver and a beneficiary of the 4IR strategy. We advocate for the very, very important critical positioning of the arts in education and as a knowledge and skills engine supporting the human capital needs of the economy. You cannot produce creative, adaptive, critical thinking individuals out of our school system and not prioritize the arts in education. So we have put it front and center that from ECD right through, the arts has to be mainstreamed for the reason of producing the types of graduates that we need for our economy. So there are opportunities there for you, no matter what genre you work in the arts, for getting on board and activating in that space. We also recommend the establishment of creative production hubs, which are township-based, community-based, rural areas that are digitally enabled, that support the development of creative content. We also push the creative sector. The president wants to do mass skills rollouts as a low-hanging fruit, things that we can do in the short term to really provide uptake for this huge youth population that we have. And so we've recommended that the creative industries is the ideal sector for one of those mass skills programs to be rolled out. And then, at a policy level, we prioritize the freelance issue being sorted out, the intellectual property and the copyright bills that are floating around still being sorted out. These things are all critical. And then for us to look at mainstreaming this whole sector as an economic area and not just, because if it's not mainstream with the DTI, we are going to remain the song and dance people, guys. It's just how the system and the structure works.
Hey, everybody. We're really sorry. We're running into some technical difficulties this morning. We lost Beth, but we're trying to get her back on because her presentation isn't finished yet, and she's been hitting some hard notes with that content. Whoa! When she said, if we don't get this right, we will end up being song and dance people forever. Hey, Beth, you're back. Hello.
I'm back.
Hi. I'm so glad we had you back. I'm so glad we have you back. We'd
Okay.
like to allow you to finish your discussion, please. We've got 5 more minutes for you. We're so
Sure.
sorry about the technical difficulties that we're having on this side, but the content that you're sharing with us is so impactful. We have to let you carry on. Thank you.
Cool. I'm just trying to reshare my presentation.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, we've got Beth on the line. Beth is back with us now, and Beth is trying to share her screen, and we're running into some difficulties
Some
with
of
that.
the thoughts we've had as creatives in say,
Oh, the reception is giving us some issues here. Okay, Beth, we've got your screen now. No, we've lost Beth and we've lost the screen again. Oh, but she raised some really interesting issues as well. I mean, she spoke about the fact that in the West, or in the first world, people already had their eye on what was coming with this digital revolution. I remember last year during hardcore lockdown, my children are addicted to video games. They're addicted to Fortnite. And I remember Travis Scott doing a live concert inside Fortnite. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. And I just thought about the kind of possibilities that exist and why we're not being given the chance to be able to play with these kinds of opportunities. I mean, the idea that we will still end up as African creatives sitting waiting to be booked for gigs, sitting waiting to be an idea on somebody else's mind as this digital revolution happens, that breaks my heart. That really breaks my heart. If we're still going to carry on being in the same kind of disempowered position that we're in, what is the point of all this? Oh, Beth, we've got you back. Hey, Beth, I can see you.
I'm back. Can you see
Hi.
Can you see my screen?
Now we've got your screen. Fantastic.
Cool. I'm going to race through,
Okay.
guys.
Okay, thank you. We've got an additional 5 minutes for you, Beth, and we appreciate you making the effort to come back.
Sure.
Over to you.
No stress. I'll run through. Guys, this
Thank
is
you.
just a quick response that some of us as creators have had to the 4-hour report. So we've said we've got to look inward to the sector and say, what do we need to do? And we've also got to look outward and say, what do we bring to 4-hour for South Africa? So in all these categories that are in the middle, we've got to look inward at what is the new skilling we need? What is the reskilling, upskilling? What do we need to look at within our sector? How are we protecting and preserving culture and identity? We've got to look at business models within the sector and how we're going to work. On the other side, in terms of what we bring, art is an instrument to impart critical skills and improve teaching practice. We are able to go into the education space and prioritize arts education because this report puts it front and center as a non-negotiable. So there's a few more areas here, and I hope you're able to just read through a few of them on the screen. I want to highlight that social and creative skills are very, very critical to navigating the shifts that are coming to the country in general with 4IR. 4IR changes how we do things, but also who we are. So it affects how we negotiate our identity, how we are, our kids don't think the same as we do. They're on their phones negotiating their identity, how they meet people, how we nurture relationships, how we develop our careers, consume goods. As arts and culture practitioners, as creatives, we are in many ways the custodians of identity. And what are we doing to articulate what this looks like? What does Afrofuturism look like? What is this African cultural identity that marries in technology and progress but doesn't negate who we are as Africans. What does that look like? And we've got to be articulating this and not reacting to the changes, but really positioning ourselves at the front end. Basically, 4 hours bringing us to what we already have known in Africa for generations, that art and education are not a luxury, they're essential for a healthy society. Our role has always been to reflect changes and challenges back to society for meaningful engagement, to be asking the questions, to be bringing into focus the issues and the challenges that we have as a society. And all of this is being said to say that it is not just about what we put in the digital space. We cannot create in a digital space if we do not have these routes of access to meaningful progress in the arts, where we have thriving theatres, thriving dance centres, thriving community arts centres. Healthy arts and culture sector is critical if we are going to be the custodians of identity in a 4R era and are going to articulate what this cultural product is that is going out to the world. So I want to ask you then today, think about what are the wings 4R can give us, because it can. What are the new business models? And many of these we don't know. We're having discussions about it now. This can help us leapfrog out of some of the stuff that we've got stuck in over the years and the backlog that we have, if we use it wisely. And then what are the internal priorities for our sector and its subsectors? What are the external priorities and the things we're going to bring and lead in the national economy in as the creative sector? Collaboration has got to mark how we work going forward. What are the digital skills that we need? Business skills, you're not going to get away from it. We've got to start thinking like entrepreneurs. We do think like entrepreneurs in many ways, but we've got to get the know-how. We incubate a lot of SMMEs in the creative sector. I think creatives make brilliant entrepreneurs because the whole nature of what we do is entrepreneurial. We just need to bring alongside the support and the skill for that. Think about creativity in education in the world of work. Creativity is the #1 commodity everybody needs right now. What opportunities are there for you? How are we going to look at our value chains in this new space and look at market access? How's the Africa Free Trade Agreement going to help us? Can we start thinking as a bloc instead of individual countries? Can we start really jumping in and collaborating to broaden our participation? Can we own the content aggregation platforms? Can we start putting up our own ones in advance of where everybody else is? I think we can, and I think we should. Invest in skills. We have to figure out what are the skills we need to invest in now for the next 5 years, so that in 5 years' time, we can meet the demand. In 3 years' time, in 2 years' time, we can meet the demand that there is in this industry for creative content. And then we've got to rethink our cultural policy. Our institutions in the industry are not set up for this. They're old. They were set up in post-1994. They don't work. We see it at the National Arts Council now. There's got to be a complete rethink of the policy environment in the art space. Inclusive innovation, critical, leaving nobody behind. This can actually help us to leapfrog many, many marginalized creatives in communities if we are strategic. And I'm going to end with Albert Einstein, who says that, we can't solve the problems we have using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. And another quote to end to say, artists are, after all, architects in some way of their own future and of our shared future. And if we are not part of thriving creativity in our own space, thriving creative production and a thriving arts and culture sector, our nation will actually suffer, because in many ways we are the architects of what the shared future of the country is going to look like in this 4R era.
Fire, 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 Beth. Wow. I had so many Holy Ghost moments. I promise you, I could spend the next 15 minutes reflecting on what it is that you have to say. I think your content is just, it's mind blowing. It's pertinent. It is relevant for us, for our context. It's the exact questions that we need to be asking ourselves as practitioners and as a sector. And just to share with everyone who is watching that this entire forum is being recorded. all of the speakers are being recorded. We'll let you know where we will share this at a later date. And by participating in the chat, like yesterday, by participating in the chat and in the discussions, you're also implicitly consenting to being recorded, which I think is for everybody's benefit, because the contributions in the chat as well have been so rich and so meaningful. I hope you get a chance to be able to look at those, Beth, because some people put forward some really interesting ideas and questions for you. But I just want to thank you. I just really want to thank you. The artist protests are currently taking place in Johannesburg. I think they've been going on for 2 weeks in Joburg. It's been about a week now in Bloemfontein. I think it's day 3 in the Northern Cape, and I think they just started or they're just about to start in Cape Town. So the issues that you're speaking about are very pertinent, because in many ways, our sector, our way of doing things has been backward for quite a long time. And this is kind of forcing us. This is forcing, it's kickstarting at a structural and policy level change, but also forcing us to catch up to, not just catch up to the rest of the world, but actually to outpace the rest of the world. Because as you say, you know, custodian of culture and humanity, the custodian of the future that we are building, the moral custodian of the future that we are building, the heartscape of the world that we are building is here in Africa. And we can't just be on the receiving end of other people's dreams forever and ever, amen, while our content gets stolen. So thank you for this. I'm so glad that this is the input that the presidency is sitting with, that you are, you know, that you've put these thoughts into the minds of the people who are going to be the architects of policy for us going forward. We appreciate you. And again, we will let everyone know where the recorded footage of this forum will be made available. Thank you, Beth.
Okay. Lepo, may I just say one quick thing, that we are looking to have a discussion on the 4-hour report where we get creatives to really say this is what we're going in response with to government. And put that in at the highest level. So I'd be very happy for a lot of you guys to get involved in that. So just, I'm sure my email number's on the profile page somewhere. Get in contact if you want to be part of us really putting these things in a coordinated way from across the sector, taking the report further and getting it engaged.
Are you happy, Beth, for us to make your contact details available? Will you make an email address available to us that we can share with people? Because I'm sure there are plenty of people who would love to.
I'm going to type it in the chat right now.
Fantastic.
And I'm sorry I couldn't get to all the questions with the cutting on and off, but hopefully.
No, it's okay. It's okay. There are also discussion forums later. If you have time to stay with us this afternoon, I think we would really benefit from having you around so that we can be able to have some one-on-one and smaller discussions with you. Thank you for that content. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.